In 1892, William James delivered a series of lectures to teachers at Harvard that were published under the title Talks to Teachers on Psychology. The lectures were practical, vivid, and immediately useful, and nowhere more so than in the chapter on habit, where James laid out a theory that is still, more than 130 years later, among the most complete and accurate accounts of how human behavior becomes automatic. He began with a claim that must have startled his audience, that the great mass of human behavior is not chosen, not deliberate, and not the product of consciousness at all. It is habit, action that has been repeated so many times that it no longer requires any mental effort to produce. 99 hundredths, or, possibly, 999 thousandths of our activity, he wrote, is purely automatic and habitual, from our rising in the morning to our lying down each night. This could sound like a diminishment of human beings. James saw it as the opposite, as a liberation. The habits that run automatically free the mind for genuine novelty. If you had to consciously decide every morning how to brush your teeth, how to tie your shoes, how to walk down a staircase, you would have no mental energy left for anything else. Habit is what makes higher life possible by delegating the ordinary to systems that don't require attention. The physiological basis of habit, as James understood it, was the plasticity of the nervous system, what he called the plasticity of the organic materials of which the body is composed. Every time a pattern of neural activity is repeated, the pathway through which that activity flows becomes slightly easier to traverse. The neurons that fire together wire together, as a later generation would put it. The physical basis of memory and habit is the same, a structural change in the brain that makes the same pattern more likely to recur. This means that habit formation is not fundamentally a matter of psychology in the narrow sense. It is physiology. The way to build a habit is to repeat the behavior, consistently and without exception, until the neural pathway is strong enough to run automatically. There is no psychological shortcut to this physical process, James insisted. Only repetition works. But he had specific advice about how to make repetition most effective. The first rule was to start the new habit with as much initiative as possible, to begin with energy and decisiveness rather than tentatively, to make the first performance of the new behavior as vivid and committed as possible. The emotional commitment of the beginning, James believed, strengthened the neural impression. The second rule, and the one James returned to most insistently, was never allow an exception. Not once, not for a good reason, not when you are tired. The person who resolves, he wrote, must not dare to doubt, must not waver, must not hesitate. Each exception undoes a portion of what previous repetitions have built. The habit that has tolerated exceptions is not a true habit. It is a preference, and preferences collapse under pressure. The third rule was to seize every opportunity to act on the new pattern. If you are trying to build the habit of daily exercise, take every chance to exercise. If you are trying to build the habit of intellectual discipline, take every chance to practice it. Seize the very first possible opportunity to act on every resolution you make, he wrote, because unrealized resolutions fade, and faded resolutions leave the mind weaker than before. This last point contained one of James's most important psychological insights, that action changes the mind that produces it. Every time you act on a resolution, you strengthen it. Every time you fail to act, every time you feel the impulse to do something virtuous and let it pass without expression, you weaken not only that resolution but the general habit of translating resolutions into actions. Nothing is so fatiguing, he wrote, as the eternal hanging on of an uncompleted task. The mind that has learned to intend without acting is a mind that has been trained in impotence. James also believed that character was largely formed by the age of 30. This was not fatalism. He thought the formation could be directed, and that young people in particular should use their youth to build the habits that would serve them for life. But it was a recognition that the nervous system gradually loses its plasticity, and that the patterns established in early life tend to become permanent. Already at the age of 25 you see the professional mannerisms settling down on the young commercial traveler. He observed, the habitual expression, the habitual posture, the habitual way of meeting the world. The lesson was urgent. If you want to be a certain kind of person, you must begin now to perform the actions of that person. Character is not something you decide to have and then wait for. It is the accumulated residue of everything you have repeatedly done. You are building it right now, whether you are paying attention or not. Subscribe to The Psychology of William James for more of his timeless ideas.